party, baby.
Well, boy, oh boy, don't we have a surprise for you folks at Barstools and Bandtalk. A lot of people are talking about this, weren't they, Sean?
They were. This is going to be a quick hit of many sorts on two fronts. One, because it's a teaser with our guests. And two, I might have to bug out, depending upon what happens, but Dave's more than capable. I can get Dave to introduce our next guest, but had a ton of interaction. You might as well say Dave and I both used to work for this fella.
Yeah.
He kept the local music scene afloat for quite a while. Dave, introduce our guest.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to bring onto the show Geoff Palmeter, who was not only the owner of the Misty Moon Cabaret from 1980 to 1991, but was working there from 86 to 88 before then. So he's got all things Misty Moon related, certainly on Barrington Street address for sure. Geoff, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Sean.
No problem. So what we're here to do right now is just kind of give folks a little bit of a teaser. Yeah, we're like symbiotic, like we're the same pretty much, right? We're going to give folks a bit of a teaser about what information you can share with them, and maybe ask the questions to you that they want to know. A lot of folks ask me, say, could they ever have a Misty Moon again? What did they pay Jeff Healey back in 1989? What was the dress code all about? Why did they kick me out on that night? As Sean said earlier, where's my coat that I left at the coat check back in 1987, right? So tell us how you came about owning the Misty Moon.
Well, it all started at university. I had a chance to bus tables, do a little bartending and some waiting, and graduated from university. The guys who owned it, they'd never had a manager before. For some reason, they trusted me and gave me the chance to manage it, which I did for a couple of years, and then gave me a chance to buy it in '88.
So one of the things, I guess, Geoff, that I'll ask you, because I've always wondered this. So obviously you enjoyed, there was ups and downs of owning a bar, but was it something that you wanted to do from like you got into business, you were busting tables, you want to run a bar and own a bar, or something you kind of happened upon?
Well, the glamour of owning a bar, that wasn't really why I did it. It was fun working in the bar, bartending and that sort of stuff. I saw an opportunity to make a little bit of money. Dollar signs on my eyes. And I was young enough, I was single, I had a leased car and a television, so couldn't really take anything away from me, right?
And people don't realize, I mean, it seems like a very glamorous business, but you and I both know it's a lot of hard work, a lot of late nights. One of the guys that I played with for years is, the people work at a bar and work hard on Fridays and Saturdays so everybody else can have their weekend is essentially the case, and people don't understand that.
No, and it's Sean, it is a dirty industry. It really is. There's a lot of dark stuff happens in it, as you can well appreciate, and as you guys have probably experienced as well. So, glamorous isn't really a good term for it, although people thought it was, oh, how cool, owning a nightclub.
Sure.
And you had the premier nightclub, though, for sure. The Misty Moon Cabaret was the place, in that late 80s for sure. I mean, you were there at the right time, at the right place, without question. I know there's a website, Friends at the Misty Moon, has a Facebook page, and they certainly have, I think, 400 bands or some crazy number, whatever that played there. But if you could, maybe give us the top 3 names that were the most profitable that played there in your time.
The Jeff Healey show was definitely the absolute best show, dollar-wise, we ever had. Mostly, it was that was done around the time Roadhouse was done. So
yes.
The timing was perfect for it. On top of that, Much Music did the filming of it. So we promoted the crap out of that. People wanted to be part of that event. So that would have been number 1. I'd say the second one would have been The Hit. The Tragically Hip did a show, again, another Much Music Presents. And that was a phenomenal show. And typically when I'm working, I never really listened to the band. You'd sing along, but I'd never really stop and watch the band and listen to them. But that night was just wow. The hip show was incredible. Nazareth was a big one. Of course, the Doug and the Slug shows were always good. David Wilcox were great. The Box always put on really, really great shows. So those would be some of the bigger acts.
What about the local bands now? Who are your top 3 Jaws for local bands?
Good question. Razor Boy was big. And I've mentioned earlier that Razor Boy put on, it wasn't just a band, it was a show. So Jackie would, instead of the 28 or 48 lights that we provide, he'd bring in another 100 lights. It had to be larger than life. So, he was certainly very popular. Of course, Sam Moon played a lot, and Inglewood, of course, if you consider them to be local. We had a lot of really cool young bands. We had ICU comes to mind. They were a bunch of guys going to St. Mary's at the time. Yep. And just super, super guys. Had a blast with them. And they brought in a lot of college, a lot of kids from university. So, these were sort of during my time.
Sure.
And these were the bands, in a lot of cases, that I'd love to hire as opening acts, because they were just really cool. There was they weren't consider themselves superstars or anything like that. They'd be really cooperative to the headliners, who sometimes could be difficult, as you guys know.
Right.
Oh, 100. And I mean, when I played there, and it was more so after you left, but I mean, I opened up for a lot of people. It was really it was a higher wire act, along with, and it usually wasn't the band so much. It was different people that were associated with the bands. It was, you had to make nice and be politically astute, or you wouldn't survive.
Yeah, I remember Blue Oyster Cult coming in doing a show, and the rider was crazy. They wanted forklifts and they wanted all this shit. Yeah. We're not playing Madison Square Gardens here, guys. So their road crew was just horrible, just impossible to deal with. And I was close to actually canceling the show. But then I met the guys in the band, and they were the coolest guys. And they said to me, "Look, if they give you any shit, just come see us. We'll straighten them out." So you're right. It was, in a lot of cases, it was the road managers, and some of their crew who were difficult sometimes. The bands themselves, for the most part, especially the most experienced ones, the guys who've been at the top of their game. I'd mentioned like the Nazareths and the BTOs and the Troopers of the world. Yeah. Oh, the most down-to-earth people you'd ever meet.
Isn't that nice?
Well, and the trick always became to figure out a way to get along with the road crew, because once they started liking you, then your life was pretty easy. It was almost like you get along with the bar staff, and you all be teammates. And if the bar staff likes you and you get along with the bar staff, you have a great week or a great weekend, right? It's pretty simple. One of the things, Geoff, I did want to mention, you mentioned Jeff Healy and you mentioned the Hip. Those are two shows that are still to this day mentioned as iconic Halifax shows, and they were shot in the Moon. People still talk about them. There's a thing that was played on Much Music maybe a year ago about that show. When it was going on, did you think it was just another show, or were you going, this could be something here that we might be talking about for years to come?
Well, the Jeff Healy show, that was the first one we did, the first real decent Much Music one. And we were jammed, and his label at the time, oh Christ, I can't remember who the label was, but they spent some money in doing a pre-party, and they were promoting the crap out of it. So that night when I saw the lineups and the people coming in, I knew, wow, this is going to be something. And then knowing the same thing when we did the same thing with the Hip, it was like, I knew ahead of time, yeah, this is really, really going to be something.
Did you do what every good club owner does? You guys available next week?
I think it's one of those special occasions, Sean, that I don't think you'd ever want to try and duplicate it. It just sort of happened.
Right.
So we could have brought the hip in maybe again and did a live show maybe 5 years later if I'd been in there, but it wouldn't have been the same. I think so much was about the time.
You were really there at the right time, at the right place, Geoff, without question. And a lot of things that we talked about before we get on air here now. And we're going to give folks a bit of an opportunity to ask some questions for us in the next week or so about things that you'd like to ask. This is the things you like to ask Geoff segment. But really, I was shocked to hear the overhead, because a lot of people think, those fucking band, club owners, they've got it made in the shade, they've got more money than God, blah, blah, blah. Your rent in 1988 was $15,000 a month. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of revenue to overhead. That's before you pay staff. That's before you buy your liquor. That's before you pay the band. Now, without getting into too much details, let's take the Tragical Hit, for example, 1988, 89.
That was 89, I think.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what would you have paid the Tragical Hit in 1989 to pay for that one night? There's only one night, right?
They played. Yeah, I think they played one night. They played. It was 12,000, I think, versus 80% of the door. So they would have. They would have gotten into. They would have made percentage on that.
Okay.
So.
But the thing we talked about earlier too is like GST came into that fact. So you're not paying just $20,000 for a band. You're paying $20,000 plus 7, then 15%. At one time, it was 17% back in the early 90s. Not only that, but I mean, you talk about your liability insurance. You talk about your cleaning staff. I mean.
Yeah,
we all watched Bar Rescue. You said you didn't have much issue with staff. There wasn't much theft or anything like that because you said you had a great staff. But I mean, there's a lot of overhead.
I had the most amazing staff, Dave. I was so lucky to work with every one of them, and I'm still to this day very close friends with a lot of them. You're right though. The overhead. You'd come in on a Friday night and you'd see, geez, there's 1,500 people in there. He's making huge money, and sometimes I could, but come in there on a Monday night and see the 40 people, and you're looking at 20,000 square feet of space that you have to heat, you have to pay rent and taxes on. We only needed that 20,000 square feet, maybe 10, 15 hours a year, but you're paying rent 365 days of the year. Plus being a cabaret, you couldn't open before 4 o'clock. So you had, basically 12, 13 hours a day that you were paying rent on a space that you couldn't generate any revenue out of.
Crazy.
One of the things, Geoff, I have a buddy of mine over the last little bit, and he was been talking about the bar industry, and one of the things that he keeps saying is the bar industry is the first to get frigged and the last to get fixed. But that he means regulations and different sorts of things, and so it's one of those things where just what's your thoughts on that? It
is regulated like crazy, and there are always people watching. I can tell you 2 funny stories, and I think you might get a kick out of this. The first one was, I think it was the Box that was playing, and we were lined up around the corner, and I had 2 people selling tickets at the door, just trying to sell tickets as fast as we possibly could to get people in the door. So the next thing you know, the police show up with a fire marshal, and they're saying, okay, he's got too many people in there. So they come in, and I'm talking to them. And I said, well, no, I'm not over there. No. So really, they had the choice. They could turn around and close the place and count the number of people leaving. But then they could be liable if they're wrong. So I said, look, why don't you come in? We'll take a walk around and you tell me. Well, you can imagine or the fire marshals, and then I suggest they take a couple police as well, just to keep an eye on things. Well, you can imagine a crowd of them walking through the club. Well, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. So we get back to the door, and they say, geez, no, it's not as bad as we thought it was. I said, well, I told you. Meanwhile, we were over capacity for sure.
Like earlier, I have to leave. Dave's going to finish this up. But one of the things we talked about before we did this segment is that we want you to send your questions to ask Geoff, and Geoff is agreed to open the book, so to speak. We're not going to add egg on that, but he told us some very interesting things beforehand. So as we wrap, Geoff, I want to say it's great seeing you after all these years. Say hi to Brian.
Yeah, you too, Sean.
We're gonna circle back in another week or so and get some of this going. Great seeing you, my man.
All right, take care.
All right.
There's Sean gone. So we'll finish up here right quick.
Yeah.
Then anyhow, Geoff. So basically, that was one story. Tell me the second story right quick.
Well, we had incidents, as you know. We'd have, maybe problem with the people and fights and stuff.
Oh no.
Are you there?
I think he's trying to go.
Hey, John. So it's like a Thursday night, and I had a visit from the liquor inspector, and she wanted to talk to me about the number of complaints and fights. And, I always like to compare it to the Metro Center. So based on the amount of people that we would have in there, we had way less incidents than what would happen at the Metro Center, for instance.
Right.
So we're sitting there talking, and she has her back. I don't know if you remember the window opening on the Barrington Street.
Yes, very well.
So she's sitting there with the back of the window, and I'm facing her across the table, and we're just chatting, and she's talking about the number of fights that were happening, and I'm trying to downplay it. And then I look over her shoulder, and there are two guys right outside the window going at it like there's no tomorrow, just slugging her out. And I'm going, oh, shit. So the doorman had called the police. Police showed up, came, locked the two guys up. Inspector didn't even notice it.
And those bastards, they were from the Graduate. I don't know how they got down here. I don't know how that happened.
There aren't any problems here.
Okay, so let's finish up with this then, Geoff. So I guess, what information is it okay for folks to ask you? Because, I mean, they're going to ask me a lot of questions.
I'd love it if people had questions about specific dates between 88 and 91. Depending upon who the act is, I can share. I don't mind sharing all the information, what I took in, what I paid them. There may be some acts that I can't share that because of obligations. So mind you, it was 30 years ago, but I still don't want to jeopardize that because I always try to have a decent reputation with people. But I'd love to be able to show in some cases how it wasn't really as lucrative as you think when you'd see paying a band maybe $25,000 for 4 days and taking in 5 on the door. So there were some great successes and some not so good ones. But I love to share this sort of stuff so people get a sense on what it is that running a nightclub's all about.
And the biggest question I get asked all the time, Geoff, do you think it would happen again, Dave? I mean, we're all caught up in the nostalgia of this right now, and thinking back to the old days. But there's still a crowd. There's still a music scene. There's some talented musicians that are coming out of the Maritimes. Could it happen again, do you think?
I think it's tough. We were in the golden age, the 70s and 80s, baby boomers. Now we're a little bit older. We're a little more responsible. We have kids, mortgages. We can't last till 3:30 in the morning anymore. There's lots of choices when it comes to entertainment and venues. So as much as it would be very cool to have another place like that, I don't think it wouldn't be something I'd invest in, that's for sure.
That's fair to say.
Yeah.
We're going to take a wrap with that. We're going to visit back with Geoff within the next week or so. And in that period of time, you can either direct message Sean or I, or leave the message under this interview that I'm going to post here a little bit later on, and ask Geoff questions. Ask Geoff Palmater anything. Well, not even at anything, I guess, but yeah, we'll certainly get into some details about the Misty Moon and your time there for sure. Geoff, I want to thank you on behalf of Barstools and Bandtalk to coming on here. And again, as a follow-up, we're going to see you within the next week or so.
Perfect. And Dave, it's a pleasure to join you. And I hope to see you playing live sometime, somewhere, sometime soon.
We're working on some stuff. All right, you take care, my friend. All right. Peace out.